She landed, so lightly that you almost didn't feel it, but so present that the whole world stopped for a moment. A butterfly, in your hands, on your shoulder, in the exact space where you were. It didn't run away when you moved. It didn't fly away when you breathed harder. It just stayed, as if it knew something you hadn't realized yet. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, understood these moments as manifestations of the Logos, the universal reason that governs all events in the cosmos. For him, nothing happens by chance, especially when free creatures choose to approach. Living according to nature is living according to virtue, he taught. And perhaps the butterfly that landed on you recognized exactly that you have finally aligned with something greater. It didn't come for beauty, it came for recognition. Because there are moments in life when you make a silent but profound decision, a decision that you don't announce to anyone, that you may not even verbalize to yourself, but that fundamentally changes your internal frequency. And nature notices. Zeno believed that when you align with the universal order, the universe responds. And sometimes that response comes in the form of a delicate creature that chooses to land exactly on you at the exact moment when you most need confirmation. Fate guides those who follow it and drags those who resist, Zeno wrote. And perhaps the butterfly landed because you finally stopped resisting, stopped fighting against the natural flow of your life, stopped arguing with the circumstances, stopped demanding that the world bow to your desires. And when you stop resisting, when you surrender to the natural movement of things, there is a subtle change in your energy, a lightness that didn't exist before, a peace that nature recognizes. The butterfly didn't land by coincidence. It landed by consonance, consonance between your soul and the universal harmony that Zeno called divine. This is the truth that few understand. The most meaningful encounters happen when you are in tune with something greater than yourself. And in that alignment, creatures that symbolize transformation are naturally attracted to you. If a butterfly has landed on you recently, perhaps it's time to recognize that something inside you has changed, something that made it trust that you were a safe place to land. Do you remember what was happening in your life when it appeared? Not just the external events, those that any observer could notice, but the internal movements, the silent decisions, the imperceptible changes in the way you were dealing with things. Zeno spent his life studying the relationship between internal states and external manifestations. He understood that the universe is a living organism, and each part responds to the state of the other parts. Everything that happens as it should happen, he wrote. And perhaps the butterfly that landed on you was exactly what should happen at that specific moment in your journey. Because there is something about butterflies that makes them perfect messengers of moments of transformation. They know in their own bodies what it means to die completely to one form of existence and be reborn into a completely different one. And when one chooses to land on you, it's not a coincidence, it's recognition. Recognition that you have also gone, or are going, through some kind of metamorphosis. Perhaps you have made a difficult decision in the previous weeks, a decision that required courage, that involved leaving something behind, that demanded you choose growth instead of comfort. Or perhaps you have finally made peace with some part of your history that you always resisted accepting. A loss, a disappointment, a regret that you carried for years. Or perhaps you have simply reached a place of inner acceptance, a place where you stopped fighting against what is and started working with what is. Zeno knew that these moments of inner alignment create a subtle but detectable change in our energy. We stop emitting resistance and start emitting acceptance. We stop radiating struggle and start radiating fluidity. And sensitive creatures feel it. The butterfly that landed on you wasn't just looking for a place to rest. It was looking for a specific frequency, the frequency of someone who has finally made peace with the process of transformation. Do you remember what it was like before, when you lived in constant friction with reality? When every obstacle was a personal injustice, every difficulty was an attack from fate? At that time, butterflies flew away because you radiated turbulence. But something changed, perhaps gradually, perhaps suddenly. You stopped seeing life as an adversary and started seeing it as a teacher. You stopped demanding that things be as you wanted and started finding wisdom in what they were. You stopped resisting the process and started trusting it. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle: some things are under our control and others are not, Zeno taught. And perhaps the moment when the butterfly landed was exactly when you internalized that truth. When you stopped wasting energy trying to control the uncontrollable, when you started focusing on what was really in your hands, your choices, your responses, your inner attitude. Zeno called this prohairesis, the ability to choose how to respond to circumstances. And when you develop this ability, when you learn to maintain your center regardless of what happens around you, there is a transformation in your presence. You become like the butterfly itself, capable of flying through storms, but also capable of landing gently when it finds harmony. The butterfly that landed on you recognized that quality, recognized that you had become someone reliable, not just reliable for not hurting it physically, but reliable energetically, someone whose presence does not disturb, does not agitate, does not bring chaos, someone who has learned to be a center of calm amidst the storms of life. The wise man is he to whom nothing can happen against his will, Zeno wrote, not because the wise man controls all circumstances, but because he has learned to want what happens. And perhaps the butterfly landed because it felt that wisdom in you, felt that you had learned to want what life offers instead of fighting against it, felt that you had become someone who accepts the dance of existence instead of trying to change the music. Its landing was not an accident. It was confirmation. Confirmation that your inner transformation had created a new quality of presence, a presence that nature recognizes and trusts, a presence capable of sustaining delicacy without breaking. Victoria was in the hospital garden after receiving the diagnosis that would change everything. It wasn't terminal, but it was definitive, a condition that would require permanent changes in the lifestyle she had known for 40 years. Sitting on the bench, processing the information, she made a silent choice. I will accept it. I will not fight against it. At that exact moment, a blue butterfly landed on her hand and stayed there for several minutes. It was as if the universe was telling me, "You chose right," she said later, as if nature was confirming that acceptance was the way. Marcus faced an impossible professional decision. Accept a proposal that meant moving to another country, leaving behind everything he knew, but following a dream he had nurtured for decades. After weeks of mental agony, he finally decided, I will trust the process. I will say yes. The next day, during a morning walk, a monarch butterfly landed on his shoulder. It accompanied him for almost a block, as if celebrating the decision. Monarch butterflies migrate thousands of kilometers, he researched later. Perhaps it was reminding me that great journeys require courage, but are always worth it. Zeno understood that when you make decisions aligned with your true nature, the cosmos responds, not with fanfare, but with subtle confirmations that only attentive hearts perceive. Anna was going through a painful divorce. For months she fought against reality, tried to save something that had already died, resisted the inevitable end, until the day when, exhausted from fighting so much, she simply let go. It's okay. I let it go. That afternoon, a yellow butterfly entered through the kitchen window and landed on the wedding ring she was about to put away. It was as if it knew that was a sacred moment, Anna reflected, a moment of liberation. And it wanted to be a witness. David was going through a deep spiritual crisis. After years of questioning his faith, he reached a point of clarity. He would no longer force beliefs that did not resonate. He would build his own spirituality, honest with his experiences. On the first day, he decided to meditate in the park. Instead of going to church, a white butterfly landed on his forehead throughout the session. I felt it was a baptism, he said, as if nature was blessing my choice to be authentic. Zeno knew that authenticity creates a specific frequency that resonates with the natural order of the universe. When you stop pretending to be who you are not, and accept being who you really are, there is a liberation of energy that nature recognizes. Sophia had been facing her mother's death for months. She held on to unrealistic hopes, denied the seriousness of the situation, refused to accept the inevitable. Until one afternoon in the hospital room, looking at her unconscious mother, she finally whispered, "You can go, Mum. It's okay." A black butterfly entered through the window at that instant and landed on her mother's hand. It stayed there until she passed away, 3 hours later. "It was as if it were an angel," Sophia said. "It came to show me that death can also be delicate, that letting go can be an act of love." Elena was launching her own business after years of dreaming, but without courage. The first official day of the company was terrifying, all the insecurities screaming at the same time. Sitting at the desk of the new office, about to give up, she made a prayer. "If I'm on the right path, give me a sign." A red butterfly entered through the door and landed on the computer where she was writing the first email to clients. "I couldn't doubt it anymore after that," she said. "It was as if the universe was investing in my dream along with me." Gabriel was going through a silent depression. He could no longer feel joy, connection, purpose. Everything seemed grey, meaningless, empty. One morning, tired of carrying that weight, he spoke aloud. "I need help. I can't do it alone anymore." That same day, he decided to seek therapy. And as he walked to the first appointment, an orange butterfly landed on his hand and flew along with him for 3 blocks. "It was as if it was accompanying me to make sure I got there," he said, "as if it knew that was the first day of my healing." Zeno taught that when you make courageous decisions aligned with your greater good, invisible forces mobilize to support you. Do you remember the first time it landed on you? What were you feeling at that moment? The decision you had made, or the acceptance you had found? The butterfly didn't land to give you a message. It landed to confirm that you had already received the message and chosen to follow it. Zeno of Citium lost everything in a shipwreck. His wealth, his plans, his life as he knew it, everything disappeared into the waters of the Mediterranean. But he did not revolt against fate. Instead, he did something revolutionary. He interpreted the loss as redirection. "Fate guides those who follow it and drags those who resist," he wrote after founding the Stoic school. And perhaps the butterfly that landed on you is a witness that you have learned the same lesson, that you have stopped resisting redirection, that you have started trusting the process, even when you don't fully understand where it is taking you. Zeno understood that the universe operates through an intelligence that connects all things in a perfect order, the Logos. And within that order, each event, each encounter, each seemingly casual appearance has a purpose. The butterfly that chose to land on you was not lost. It was fulfilling a cosmic function, the function of confirming that you have finally aligned with the natural flow of existence. Living according to nature is living according to virtue, Zeno taught. And there is something about butterflies that makes them perfect symbols of this harmony between nature and virtue. They don't force transformation. They surrender to it. They don't resist the process of dissolution of the chrysalis. They trust that on the other side there is something greater. And when one lands on you, it is because it recognized that same quality in your energy, the ability to surrender to the process of transformation without resistance. Do you remember the period before the moment when it landed? How did you feel? There was probably a restlessness, a feeling that something needed to change, but you didn't know exactly what. Zeno called these periods of inner gestation, moments when the soul prepares for an evolutionary leap. And when you finally make the choice, when you decide to trust, accept, flow, there is an immediate change in your vibrational frequency. You stop emitting resistance and start emitting receptivity. You stop radiating struggle and start radiating serenity. You stop projecting fear and start emanating trust. True happiness is independent of external circumstances, Zeno wrote. And perhaps the butterfly landed because it felt that you had found that independence, that you had learned to be happy, not because everything was perfect, but because you had made peace with imperfection. You had learned to find beauty in the process, not just in the result. You had discovered that the journey can be as sacred as the destination. The butterfly knows this truth intimately. It doesn't cling to the form it had as a caterpillar. It doesn't resist the dissolution of the chrysalis. It doesn't worry about what will happen after the wings open. It simply trusts the process. And when it lands on you, it is recognizing that you have learned the same trust. The wise man lives each day as if it were a whole life, Zeno taught. And perhaps the moment when the butterfly landed was one of those complete lives, a moment when you experienced the fullness of being completely present, completely accepted, completely aligned with what is, without wanting it to be different, without trying to control what would come next, without resisting what was happening, just being with so much presence that a free creature chose to share that space with you. Zeno believed that when you find that quality of presence, you become a magnet for experiences of cosmic confirmation, not because you deserve more than others, but because you have finally developed the sensitivity to perceive the signs that have always been there. The butterfly didn't land to give you something new. It landed to reflect something that you had found within yourself, a lightness, a trust, an ability to be delicate and strong at the same time, an ability to fly through storms, but also to land with grace when it finds harmony. It landed because it recognized in you another butterfly. Zeno died as he lived, in harmony with the natural order of things. It is said that he tripped and broke a finger in old age and interpreted this as a sign that it was time to leave. He said to the earth, "I am coming, why do you call me?" and died on the same day. He had learned to read the signs of the universe, and perhaps that is the final lesson that the butterfly that landed on you was offering, that you have also learned to read the signs, not just the external signs, those anyone can see, but the internal signs. The moments when your soul whispers that it is time to trust, the instants when something inside you recognizes that it is on the right path, the subtle confirmations that the universe offers when you finally stop fighting and start flowing. Everything that happens, happens as it should happen, Zeno wrote, and that includes the appearance of that delicate creature in your life. It didn't land by chance, it landed by recognition that you had gone through your own metamorphosis, that you had died to an old version of yourself and been reborn into something lighter, more confident, more aligned, that you had learned to fly through difficulties without losing the ability to land gently when you find peace. Its touch was almost imperceptible, but the confirmation was absolute. You are on the right path, continue. They were not words that it brought. It was presence, the presence of someone who knows transformation intimately and recognizes when it finds another soul that has gone through the same process. Zeno knew that the greatest teachings do not come through words, but through direct experiences. And the moment when the butterfly landed was one of those experiences. A class without a teacher, a confirmation without explanation, a blessing without religion, just recognition. Nature has given us not only one ear or one eye, Zeno said, but has given us two of each, so that we can perceive the harmony in all things. And perhaps you have developed that perception, the perception that not all signs are dramatic, that the deepest confirmations come on 6 delicate legs, that the universe doesn't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes it just lands. The butterfly has already flown away, but the confirmation it brought remains. It remains in the memory that you are reliable, that your energy is safe, that your transformation is real, that you have become someone in whom even the most delicate nature can trust. Fate guides those who follow it, Zeno taught, and you are being guided, not by external forces that control your life, but by the inner wisdom that has learned to read the signs, to trust the process, to accept the redirections with grace. The butterfly landed because you finally stopped resisting your own destiny, because you learned that transformation is not loss of identity. It is discovery of who you always were beneath the layers of resistance and fear. It landed to confirm, you are no longer the caterpillar that was afraid to fly. You are the butterfly that has learned to trust its own wings, and that is a confirmation that not even the universe can deny. Like if you recognize that the deepest confirmations come without noise. Comment if a butterfly has ever landed on you in a significant moment of your life, and share with those who still doubt that the universe responds when we finally learn to flow instead of resist.